What if I told you that until just 2 centuries ago, the world's largest empire, stretching from the heart of Eastern Europe to the vast expanse of the Pacific, wasn't just real, but universally acknowledged by mapmakers and scholars alike? And what if I told you this civilization, known as Tartaria, has been so thoroughly erased from modern history that most people have never even heard its name? This isn't the plot of a sci-fi novel. This is the story of Tartaria, a civilization whose presence dominated centuries of cartography, yet whose memory has been systematically wiped from our collective consciousness. As we open ancient atlases, we see the name Tartaria sprawled boldly across massive territories. Centuries-old books, preserved in dusty archives, show Europe, Asia, and parts of the Americas shaded under the same enigmatic label. But flip to any modern map, and those borders have dissolved. Tartaria has vanished, replaced by a patchwork of modern nations, its name relegated to the footnotes of historical obscurity, if it appears at all. The evidence isn't buried in obscure corners either. These are official documents, recognized and circulated by governments and academics across continents. The question isn't whether Tartaria existed. Its presence in our historical records is overwhelming. The real question is, who had the power to erase an entire civilization, and why? Let's start with the physical evidence. Evidence that still stands in plain sight in cities around the world. Take a walk through St. Petersburg, Chicago, San Francisco, Paris, and countless other cities. Notice the grand structures that seem oddly out of place. Ornate domes, spires, sweeping arches, and intricate stonework that official narratives attribute to independent local styles. But look closer. The similarities are uncanny: mathematical precision, identical motifs, and construction techniques that defy the limitations of their supposed builders. How could cultures separated by thousands of miles and speaking different languages create buildings that fit together like pieces of the same architectural puzzle? The answer, according to proponents of the Tartaria theory, is simple: they didn't. These buildings are the legacy of a single, interconnected civilization whose knowledge of architecture and engineering far surpassed what we've been told. But the evidence doesn't stop at the surface. Look beneath your feet. In city after city, we find buildings with entire floors buried below ground, windows and doors peering out from beneath the street, their purpose lost to time. Grand staircases leading to what's now dirt and concrete. In many cases, what's now called a basement was once the main entrance. Official explanations brush these off as quirks of urban development, cities raising their street levels for convenience, or buildings settling over time. But the pattern is too consistent, too global to be mere coincidence. Why do we see the same phenomenon in Seattle, Chicago, Paris, and St. Petersburg? Why do street levels rise by the same mysterious 10 to 15 feet in cities oceans apart, all within the same historical window? Perhaps the most compelling architectural mystery is the global network of star forts, geometric masterpieces with perfectly measured angles and intricate patterns. These structures, found on every continent, emerged almost simultaneously in the 1500s to 1700s. Officially, they're described as defensive military installations, designed to withstand cannon fire. But their complexity and scale, as well as their uncanny resemblance to each other, suggest another purpose. Was this a global network for something more advanced? Perhaps energy generation, as some researchers believe? The star forts' designs line up with ancient concepts of sacred geometry, and their placement seems to trace mysterious energy lines across the globe, the so-called ley lines that connect sites of power in ancient traditions. Could these be remnants of a worldwide technology network, built by a civilization that understood the Earth's hidden energies? If you want to glimpse the heart of the Tartarian mystery, look no further than the grand expositions of the late 19th and early 20th centuries, the World's Fairs. Take the Chicago World's Fair of 1893, known as the White City. Over 200 monumental buildings, built in a neoclassical style that match the great structures of Russia, India, and Central Asia, regions once marked as Tartaria, rose from the ground in just 26 months. Consider the scale: At a time when construction was done by hand, before the invention of power tools or modern cranes, workers supposedly erected dozens of marble palaces and miles of roads, bridges, and canals in record time. The official story calls these temporary buildings, but their grandeur and complexity rival anything built by modern means. And then, as quickly as they appeared, they vanished. Almost every fair site was destroyed by fire or bulldozed within months of the exposition's closing. Officially, this was done to clear the land for new development. But why erase every trace of these architectural marvels? Was this the deliberate destruction of repurposed Tartarian buildings, paraded as new, then systematically eliminated to cover up a previous civilization? Consider also the technological marvels displayed at these world's fairs, devices that seem out of place even by today's standards: wireless energy transmission, atmospheric electricity harvesters, free energy generators, demonstrated to the public, then quietly disappeared. News headlines trumpeted these breakthroughs, promising a world powered by endless clean energy. Yet, within a generation, these inventions vanished, replaced by the fossil fuel engines and power plants that define our modern age. Patents were bought and locked away. Inventors were marginalized, none more famously than Nikola Tesla, whose experiments with wireless energy were shut down just as oil, gas, and coal industries began their meteoric rise. Was the World's Fair era a brief window into Tartarian technology, shown to the world before being suppressed by those who stood to profit from a less free, more controlled energy paradigm? What then happened to Tartaria? The answer, according to the mud flood theory, lies in a cataclysmic event in the early 1800s. Soil samples from cities across the world reveal a mysterious layer of silt and mud, deposited almost simultaneously, suggesting a global disaster. Dendrochronology, the science of tree ring dating, points to a worldwide environmental disturbance during the same period. Was this a massive flood, triggered by a comet impact, a sudden atmospheric event, or some other unknown force? Did it bury cities in mud, covering the first floors of buildings and forcing survivors to rebuild on higher ground? Cross-sections of city streets from this period show exactly that. Uniform layers of mud enveloping the foundations of structures from London to New York, Paris to St. Petersburg. The same signature, repeated across the globe, but some believe the disaster was less natural and more orchestrated, a deliberate reset by emerging global powers. The timeline is suspicious. Immediately following Tartaria's disappearance, we see the rise of central banking systems, the founding of major universities, the standardization of education, and the redrawing of maps. New countries, new narratives, and new systems of control emerge as if by design. History books are rewritten, old documents disappear from libraries and archives, and the story of Tartaria is quietly erased. Who benefits? The new global elite, industrial magnates, banking families, and political powers whose influence explodes in the wake of Tartaria's demise. The most tantalizing thread in this web is the suppression of technology. If Tartaria had mastered the use of free energy, harnessing atmospheric electricity, resonant frequencies, and wireless transmission, then the destruction of its civilization wasn't just a land grab, it was a technological coup. The world's energy paradigm was forcibly shifted from decentralized free sources to coal, oil, and gas, resources that could be controlled, rationed, and sold. Imagine a world where energy is as free and abundant as the air, where communities are powered by devices that draw electricity from the sky, and pollution is a thing of the past. That world may have existed, and its blueprint may still be hidden in plain sight. Look around you. The evidence is everywhere. Ornate buildings in major cities, adorned with symbols and motifs unique to Tartarian art, stand as silent witnesses to a forgotten empire. Government buildings, cathedrals, and financial institutions all bear the same architectural DNA, even as modern facades attempt to mask their origins. In some places, the original structures are literally buried. Underground levels of cities reveal entire floors, windows, and doors that once opened onto sunlit streets, now hidden beneath layers of soil and concrete. These anomalies aren't secrets, they're open mysteries, hiding in plain sight. Researchers, independent and undeterred by academic resistance, are documenting these quirks. They're measuring the height of buried windows, mapping the locations of star forts, and cross-referencing historical photographs with the physical evidence that remains. They find that the official stories of gradual urban development, coincidental architectural trends, and isolated technological breakthroughs don't fit the facts. When they press for answers, they're often met with silence, deflection, or outright hostility. Why? What are academic institutions afraid of uncovering? The implications are profound. If Tartaria really existed, if our history has been rewritten on this scale, then everything we know about human progress must be re-examined. What else has been hidden? What technologies, philosophies, and systems of knowledge have been lost, suppressed, or deliberately destroyed? And what could we achieve if we reclaimed this wisdom? Imagine a future where the knowledge of Tartaria is restored. Picture a city where the facades of modern buildings peel away to reveal their true heritage. Structures that glow with energy, drawing clean power from the air, designed in harmony with the natural world. Imagine communities powered by free energy, unshackled from the pollution and scarcity of the fossil fuel age. Picture schools teaching the real story of human civilization, its triumphs, its collapses, and its rebirths. Imagine a world where knowledge is no longer hoarded, but shared freely, and where the mistakes of the past are finally understood and overcome. You don't have to be a historian or an architect to start uncovering the truth. Look for yourself. Walk your own city's streets and notice the buildings with windows below ground. Take photographies, measure the height from sidewalk to ceiling, compare it to official construction dates. Explore your local history. What happened in your city during the 1800s? Research the fate of your region's World's Fair buildings. Were they destroyed, or do they still stand with new names, their origins forgotten? Share your findings. Every anomaly, every piece of evidence brings us closer to a complete picture. A puzzle assembled by ordinary people, determined to reclaim our collective story. Tartaria isn't a secret locked in some distant vault. It's here, all around us, hidden in plain sight. It's in the buried first floors of old buildings, the star-shaped forts that dot the landscape, the inexplicable technology of a bygone era, and the gaps in our history books. The cover-up, if it exists, isn't perfect. It's a patchwork of contradictions, omissions, and mysteries. And the more we look, the more we find. So why does any of this matter? Because history isn't just a list of dates and names. It's the story that shapes our identity, our possibilities, and our future. If we've been denied the truth about our past, what else have we lost? What innovations, philosophies, or forms of organization have we been told are impossible simply because their existence would disrupt the status quo? The story of Tartaria challenges us to question, to investigate, and to imagine a different world. One where power, technology, and knowledge aren't the exclusive property of a privileged few. You have the tools to start uncovering this lost chapter. Next time you pass a building with a sunken entrance, ask yourself, was this really just a quirk of city planning? Next time you see a map from the 1700s or 1800s, look for the name Tartaria, and then ask why it's missing from every modern source. Research the history of your city's grandest structures. Were they really built when and how we're told, or do the records suggest otherwise? Join communities of researchers online, share your discoveries, and help piece together the truth. The more voices join the search, the clearer the picture becomes. Our forgotten history is waiting to be reclaimed. The ghostly outline of Tartaria lingers just beneath the surface of our cities and our awareness. A reminder that the past is never truly gone. It's only hidden, waiting for us to see it anew. The story of Tartaria is more than a conspiracy theory. It's a call to curiosity, to skepticism, and to the relentless pursuit of truth. Because when we reclaim our history, we open the door to a future we can only begin to imagine. Lost Tartaria, Shad hidden history, Ash mud flood, architectural anomalies, Lash World's Fair deception. Forgotten technology. Historical reset.